for New York.
Welcome to this week's edition of New York Now. I'm Dan Clark. New York is losing a seat in Congress for at least the next decade. That's according to the U.S. Census Bureau this week. And the reason is so disappointing. It turns out that if just 89 more people had been counted on the census in New York last year, we wouldn't be losing that seat. Listen to this from Monday.
What we have is that if New York had had 89 more people, they would have received one more seat instead of the last state that received their last seat. And if you do the algebra equation that determines how many they would have needed, it's 89 people.
And people are now starting to point fingers over why this happened. I mean, 89 people is a very small number compared to the state's population. According to the census, we now have more than 20 million people living in New York. That's more than 10 years ago, but we're not growing at the same rate as other states. And 89 people, that could be people who just moved out of New York, or people who died from COVID, or just people who chose not to fill out the census. And because that number is so small, Governor Cuomo said this week that the state may take legal action.
Do I think it was accurate to within 89? No. And we're looking at legal options, because when you're talking about 89, I mean, that could be a minor mistake in counting, right?
And speaking of Cuomo, he held his first open press events of the year this week in areas across upstate New York. And that's important because for the first time in several months, reporters were able to ask him questions in person. One of those reporters is with me now in studio. That's Bernadette Hogan from the New York Post. We also have Kate Lisa from Johnson Newspapers here. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks. Thank you.
So, Bern, I want to start with you because you went to the governor when he was in Syracuse. You went to him when he was in Johnson City, the Binghamton area. What was your experience like? And it's so weird that I have to ask that question because we haven't seen him in like 4 months.
Right, I know, and even though we haven't seen him in person in 4 months, it seems like he's been omnipresent. But yeah, it was interesting because we haven't had an in-person press conference for reporters to attend, again, in person, since the end of November, beginning of December. So he had a press conference in Syracuse at the State Fair, and honestly, it was normal. You know, you had chairs set up for the press to sit at and a bunch of cameras in the back, and you were able to ask questions. The governor, again, as we've seen with the Zoom press conferences, he was joined by local officials and other people from the area, and afterwards he took questions from reporters. But what was different was that he's now being asked questions that he has not really been getting over these remote press conferences and the way that that format has been. So that was interesting. And then he ended up having another day. He had Binghamton on Tuesday, which I also did end up going to, and same setup. He was at a vaccination site. He was making some announcements. And again, he took questions from the press. And this, I mean, again, he has not held these in-person pressers for several months, but he was kind of like getting himself back out there, which, I mean, to his credit, he's held now, what, three press conferences in person with reporters this week, and who knows what he does today, but he is getting questions on things that he just has not answered on his own, as opposed to having aides respond to reporters either via email or phone, et cetera. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's great to be there in person, to be able to ask your own questions and not have to rely on what other reporters do or what he ends up wanting to say of his own volition.
Right, I should mention that we are taping on Friday morning. That's when we tape the roundtable and other parts of the show. Kate, he was in Buffalo, as Bern mentioned. He may be somewhere else today. How do you think it's going for the governor so far in his first, I guess, jump back into the public eye, the public versus the reporter kind of persona that he's putting on?
You know, it's been an interesting start, I guess, to get going, especially the way, as Bernadette mentioned, like we were not notified in the Albany Press Corps in time to make it, and that's very important. The public doesn't know that a lot, right? That we get the schedule sometimes an hour, if with some change in minutes.
Right, it's impossible to get to these places.
Yeah.
And that's not something that just happened this week, I should note. That's something that's historically been in the Cuomo administration. They will give reporters either not enough time or just enough time to say, you could have made it, but I'm not going to get in the car and drive to Utica with 5 minutes notice. Maybe I'm bad at my job. I don't know. Go ahead.
Right. No, I appreciate that. Right. So it's been a trend, and it's an important time that we're in. And I think I do give the governor credit for starting them this week, like he said he would. I am hoping they will continue. And it was really great too, because you got to hear the discourse that we've been missing from these, I say briefings that we've been having the last few months. Some of them have just been kind of like a rally speech.
Yes.
But the discourse of all the different issues that are going on, from the investigations into the governor to we still have a pandemic going on, the vaccines to the budget just had wrapped up. So talking about all these different issues are so important for New Yorkers to hear about. And I was so glad that finally this conversation is happening again, so that, you know, if we want to build that trust, if we talk about that, if the government officials talk about that with their constituents, this is the way to do that. This is the way to start that. And so I hope it continues.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
In the middle of all of this, there was a story from the Times this week, basically another story about how the Cuomo administration withheld data on nursing homes for several months for presumably, it looks like, political reasons or maybe appearance reasons. We don't really know because we haven't really heard from the administration on this. But Bern, what did we learn this week?
Right. So as you said, the New York Times published more evidence that the Cuomo administration were deliberately withholding information pertaining to COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes. And this is something that we have known that they were doing, again, because of previous reports that the state had done their own, review of nursing home deaths, et cetera, published a report back in July of 2020. But the Times produced more evidence that top officials, the governor's right-hand person, Melissa DeRosa, the person that's sitting next to him at the majority of these, or as we've seen over the past year, the majority of these briefings. But anyway, she was very instrumental in saying, you know, look at this data, we have to figure out what to do, et cetera. And then also there were internal discussions that the Cuomo administration was reviewing this data and going to send letters to the legislature who had been inquiring about these numbers that, again, had not been public, and of course more evidence that there was a higher number of deaths in nursing homes than had been published. At the end of May, there was something like roughly 5,000 deaths attributed to COVID-19 deaths in nursing homes, but internal reports show that number was actually closer to 10,000. So it again just shows, and something the governor has always said is follow the science, follow the data.
Follow the facts.
Follow the facts.
You can have your own facts, but not or the other way around. You can have your own opinion, but not your own facts.
Exactly. So these reports just show that the administration continuing to say that there's a disconnect there. And the governor was asked about it yesterday, and he tried to explain it a bit, and he said something to the effect of, we were concerned about the accuracy of the numbers. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, of course, no one was under any impression that those numbers were going to stay the same. I mean, people, if they're dying every day and you're recording those figures, of course they're going to change. But the important part is that you do release those figures so you can track the change, and then, you know, whatever policy decisions have to be made by those in charge or to rectify issues that might have come up there. It's just important to have the data. So that report was very interesting. Again, it's just another chapter in this saga that we've seen.
And that
maybe
confirms
another book.
the Attorney General's numbers, actually.
Yeah.
When you say the 5,000 to the
Exactly.
10,000,
Exactly.
that's about 50%.
Right.
So
Exactly.
We do have to leave it there. We're out of time. So sorry. Kate Lisa from Johnson Newspapers, Bern Hogan from the New York Post. Thank you both as always.
thank you.